Hare Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. I wish people had continued. The essence of what we are going to discuss now is Kirtane Sada Hari. Kirtan for your heart. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prasadi Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Vācākya Vishwāni. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gauranga. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
In the previous session, we discussed the meaning of the first two shlokas of Shikshatakam. The first shloka describes 7 effects of Sri Krishna Sankirtan. The second shloka describes 3 qualities of Krishna's name. And the third shloka describes 4 prerequisites to be able to chant Krishna's names effectively and sincerely. That is the subject matter of today. And if possible, we'll discuss 4th shloka also. The 4th shloka describes 5 obstacles in bhakti. Can we have a quick recap of the 2nd shloka? We didn't have it. Or shall I start the 3rd shloka directly? Is Krishna is ready for recap? Yes. What are the different types of names of Krishna?
So, Mukhina and Gormana, and Mukhina is divided into further rupas, which is Aishwarya and
Madhurya. Okay, excellent. So, what are the 3 qualities of Krishna's names? Welcome, Gauranga. First time I'm seeing you in the last class. Merciful. Powerful, accessible, and merciful. Holy name is powerful, accessible, and merciful. We have discussed many stories connected to it. One important aspect of the mercy of Krishna's name is Atayeva Namamatra Vaishnavera Dharma Name Prasphutita Haya Rupa Guna Karma. So just by chanting the names of the Lord, we'll get entrance into or access into Krishna's Rupa Guna Lila. So, but the last line of the 2nd shloka is Durdaiva Midrushamiha Jani Na Anuraga. Although the holy name is very powerful and accessible and merciful, our Durdaiva, our misfortune is we don't have taste the holy name of Krishna. How to destroy this misfortune of lack of taste for chanting Krishna's names? 4 things. Trinadapi Sudhichena Tarorapi sahishnuna avanina vanadena Kirtaniya sada harihi Trinadapi sunichena means to become humbler than a blade of grass. Tarorapi sahishnuna means to become more tolerant than a tree. Amanina means being completely freed from false prestige. Manadena means to offer respects to everyone. Then Kirtaniya Sadahari, then we will be able to constantly chant the names of Lord Hari. Glorify Lord Hari. This is the simple meaning of the shloka. All of us know, very often quoted shloka. So there is so much of depth. Even in the book, you see this one shloka, which is the smallest shloka of Shikshatakam, occupies the major portion of the book, entire book. Because that also we have to restrict ourselves a lot. So each quality has so much depth. And even in these four qualities, what are the four qualities? Pranadapi Sunichara means humility. So in the Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Chaitanya Charitamrita, we see that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami gives other terminologies for these four qualities. One is Sunichatva, humility. Second is Sahishnutva, tolerance. Third is Amanitva, means freedom from false prestige. Fourth is Manada, offering respect to everyone. Sunichatva, Sahishnutva, Amanitva, and Manada. So four alternative and simplified and smaller terminologies that you can remember. So each quality is so deep. And of these four qualities, which is most important? First one, humility. When we have humility, we automatically tolerate all kinds of inconveniences in our life. When we have humility, we automatically respect everyone and we don't expect respect for ourselves. Right? If we are not humble, if there is no humility in us, we expect respect from others. Right? So humility is the source of other three qualities described in this shloka. Humility is the foremost. Now let's discuss a little bit about humility. Even if we discuss only on this quality of humility for the next 1 hour or 1.5 hours or 1 week or 1 month, it is insufficient. In fact, the Acharyas compare humility with love of God. Right? So one who is very mature in one's love for Krishna has maximum humility. Humble person, humility is also called Daimya. So Daimya and Krishna Prema are not different from each other. One has deep Daimya and deep Prema. Who has the maximum Krishna Prema Daimya? In the entire cosmos, in all Radha. She is most humble. Because she has maximum love for Krishna, she is most humble. I don't remember the Bengali here, but anyways, there is a shloka that says that the gopis of Vrindavan are most humble devotees and they are the topmost premi bhaktas of Krishna, and amongst all of them Srimati Radharani is the topmost. Her humility is so much that she considers any one of us or any other devotee better servant of Krishna than herself. And she recommends all of us to Krishna. She says, Krishna, this devotee is better than me. Please accept this devotee. Right? So this is the humility of Srimati Radharani. She is not just saying it like in a poetic manner. It's not a poetic expression. It's not some kind of formality with which she is saying, oh, this devotee is better than me, just accept it. She means it. She literally means that she is not such a great devotee in comparison to other devotee whom she is recommending. So one who is really humble doesn't consider oneself great despite being so great. Now, let me just share. What is the first line? Trinadapi Sunichana. Trina means a blade of grass. So Mahaprabhu is not recommending that we become humble like a blade of grass. He says, become humbler than a blade of grass. Trinadapi Sunichana. It's not a Trinadiva Sunichana. Trinadapi Sunichana. What is this? First, let's analyze the condition of a blade of grass. Right? A blade of grass is on the ground. Right? Small. A few inches tall. If you step on the blade of grass, it doesn't retaliate. It doesn't protest. It doesn't kick you back. It doesn't hit you back. So you stamp on a blade of grass and you move ahead, and the blade of grass will allow you to stamp on itself, and again it will just kind of stand for another person to come and step on it. That is blade of grass. That is the condition of a blade of grass. Can we increase the volume a bit, if possible? So a blade of grass is natural constitutional position or natural identity is to be grounded. So we also have to be grounded in our bhakti. In our spiritual life, we need to be grounded. So the blade of grass is having a natural identity or natural ego to be so much connected to the ground, right? But why is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saying that we should be humbler than a blade of grass, not humbler like a blade of grass? Because the quote-unquote natural identity or ego of blade of grass is very, very natural. But oftentimes our identity, our sense of identity in this material world is often inflated, unnatural. A blade of grass is grounded, it is very natural for the blade of grass. When somebody stamps on it, it just allows one to stamp. But our ego is not even natural like that, right? Our ego is so inflated, so artificial, so puffed up, and we take pride in certain identities which have nothing to do with our core inner spiritual self. So we may identify ourselves as brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasi. We may identify ourselves as brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, sudra. We may identify ourselves as leaders, or students, or doctors, or engineers, or actors, or whatever it is. But all these identities have nothing to do with our original, natural, constitutional, eternal identity as servants of Krishna. It has nothing to do with our swarupa. All the sense of artificial identities we have nothing to do with our core swarupa as servant of Krishna. Jiva Swami Krishna Nitidas. Therefore, many of us are in a very, very unnatural ego. We have unnatural ego. Nothing else has not natural ego. And whatever little ego or sense of identity, the blade of grass is very natural. Therefore, Mahaprabhu says, be humbler than a blade of grass. Not be humbler like a blade of grass. So there is one more explanation for this. Why we have to be humbler than a blade of grass. So blade of grass is naturally very insignificant. Right? If a blade of grass is cut, or trampled upon, like nobody loses anything in this world. It doesn't make any significant difference to this universe, right? Even if a blade of grass is cut or trampled upon. Right? But a Vaishnava is very exalted. Despite being so exalted and elevated and accomplished, still a Vaishnava chooses to be humble. Right? So the blade of grass is not significant. Therefore it is insignificant, it is humble. But why Mahaprabhu says, being humbler than a blade of grass, despite you being so powerful, still you should consider yourself insignificant. Blade of grass is naturally insignificant. Right? Therefore, if you consider yourself insignificant, it's nothing big deal about it, not a big deal about it. But a devotee is generally very exalted, especially very advanced devotee. So despite being so elevated, they are considering themselves insignificant, and that consideration, that consciousness is called humility. You want an example? Prataparudra Maharaj. Uttama Raja kare tuchha seva. He is Uttama Raja. He is the most exalted human being in that locality, but he is doing tuchha seva, very insignificant service. Uttama Raja kare tuchha seva. So if we don't have anything, if we are not so qualified, we are not in a very great position or power, fine. We can be humble. So despite being very powerful and influential, still, if we consider ourselves insignificant, that is humility. Same thing with tolerance also. Okay, before we enter the zone of tolerance, let's talk a little bit of tolerance. Why Mahaprabhu is saying Taror Api Sahishna? One version is Taror Iva Sahishna. But another version, higher version is Taror Api Sahishna. Be more tolerant than a tree. Janyara Vaishnava. Be more tolerant than a tree. What does it mean? If you throw a stone at the tree, what will the tree give? Tree will give flowers and fruits and leaves. Right? And tree will tolerate all sun and gives you nice cooling shade. Tree will tolerate all cold and it will give us warm wood. And tree will tolerate all the rain, and whenever it's raining and you don't have an umbrella, you just go and stand under a tree. At least some shelter will be there. So tree will tolerate all kinds of natural calamities, and tree will give so much service to the humanity. So tree does not ask for water, even if you don't pay water. Even if you cut the tree, cut a branch of the tree, cut a leaf or whatever, flower or fruit, the tree will not protest. So tree doesn't request and doesn't protest. No request from tree's side, no protest from tree's side. However you deal with the tree, tree is tolerant. Even if you cut a branch, even if you throw a stone, tree only gives us fruits and flowers. Right? One way of looking at it is, tree has no ability to retaliate. Tree has no ability to throw a stone back at us. Right? Therefore it has to tolerate. See, if we exhibit tolerance when we don't have the ability to retaliate, that's not tolerance. If we exhibit tolerance despite having the power to retaliate, that is tolerance. You want an example? For humility, we have given the example of Prataparudra Maharaj, Uttama Raja Kare Tuchha Seva. So for tolerance, let's take the example of Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj was cursed by a small 5-year-old child to die within 7 years. Isn't it? Parikshit Maharaj had the ability to counter curse the child. He is also powerful. He has the ability to reject that curse. Just because you curse me, that does not mean I'm not obliged to accept that curse. He can reject that curse. Despite having the ability to reject that curse or counter curse, he tolerated that urge to curse. And he effortlessly tolerated. Therefore, Taror Api Sahishna, not Taror Iva Sahishna. You have to be tolerant like a tree. But the higher standard is you have to be more tolerant than a tree. More tolerant than a tree. See, chanting the holy names of Krishna is not that easy. To constantly chant the names of Krishna, we need these 4 qualities. We need humility. Am I humble? Sometimes we have this question. Why am I unable to chant? I can do many services. I can study Shastra. I can even teach Shastra. But the chanting is very poor. Why? There is no humility. There is no tolerance. We don't have genuine respect for others. Or we are expecting so much respect from ourselves. There is so much prestige, false prestige. Or desire for name, fame, adoration, power, position. Therefore we cannot chant. As simple as that. Humility and chanting are very much connected to each other. Right? And just like Nam and Prem are connected to each other. And in the beginning of the class we discussed that Prema and Dainya are connected to each other. Therefore Nam and Dainya are also connected to each other. So chanting Krishna's name is very much dependent on how much dainya we have, how much humility we have. Yeah. So that's why Mahaprabhu is emphasizing so much. Tranadapi sunijana, Tranadapi sunijana. So Mahaprabhu says, you just tie this shloka as your kanthimala, right? You have this kanthimala. So this is Tranadapi sunijana shloka, supposed to be Tranadapi sunijana shloka for all of us. Means that's how important it is, without which our whole spiritual life will not progress the way it is supposed to progress. Dranadapi sunijana, Tarorapi sahishnana. You want so many, there are so many examples of humility. Hanumanji is so powerful, but he is so humble also. So there are multiple facets of humility. One facet of humility is to consider oneself insignificant, especially in comparison to Krishna and his devotees. So Krishna, you are so great and I am insignificant. To realize one's insignificant position in comparison to Krishna is humility. Right? And it's very natural to understand that. But there are multiple facets of humility. When I am humble, I will naturally be grateful. If there is no humility, I will not be grateful for all the spiritual privileges that I am getting. I think I deserve it. Right? I deserve this respect. I deserve this treatment. I deserve these privileges. I deserve this position. I deserve to be the boss of 10 people. I deserve certain treatment from them. They need to be obedient to me. They need to be submissive to me. So whenever we think we are entitled for certain privilege or position of power, that sense of entitlement is exactly contradictory to the quality of Vaishnava humility. Sense of entitlement kills our gratitude. Lack of gratitude is lack of humility. Humility and gratitude are very much connected to each other. They are non-different in one sense. In fact, humility is connected to all kinds of Vaishnava qualities. So, one facet of humility is gratitude and no sense of entitlement, no demand for any self-respect, respect for oneself, right? And humility also means malleability, flexibility, adaptability to various circumstances. And if we are not malleable and adaptable to various circumstances, if we want situation to be in this way only, let things go my way. I cannot accept any other way. There's no humility there. This material nature will make us humble. This whole material nature, this entire material existence that Krishna has created for us is meant to make us humble thoroughly. We don't want cold, but Krishna gives us cold. Nature gives us cold. We don't want heat. When you're living in India, you don't want heat. When you're living in Melbourne, you don't want cold. You live in India in April and May, my God, you're like in oven. Like when you enter car now, you are putting heaters. When you, on a sunny day in April or May in India, if you enter car, there is a natural heat inside. Sometimes when I had to enter car, I just open the car and then stay for a few minutes and then enter. But you want to enter, you are in like oven. You become pizza. You cooked up. Similarly, the material nature also is meant to cook us up and just make us humble. If we are not naturally humble, Krishna will create us in this artificial atmosphere of material nature and make us humble and make us humiliated. And humility will be born out of that humiliation. That is Krishna's plan. While creating this material nature. Don't think that Krishna has thrown me into this material world, allowing me to undergo adhyatmika, adi bhautika, adi devika kleshas. The other day we were discussing Bhava Mahadavagni, right? Don't think that Krishna just threw me into this ditch of material nature. He has a plan. It's not that he's neglectful to us. It's not that he's unkind. He's very, very kind in throwing us into this material existence And giving this threefold material bliss so that we become humble. And we become humbly dependent on Krishna. When there is no humility, we don't have a sense of dependence on Krishna. We feel independent. And who is kept in this material world? Who comes to this material world? Whoever feels that I am independent of Krishna. I am dependent on myself. It's so much of self-reliance, right? I don't need to depend on anybody. I am self-dependent. I am the master, I am the controller, I am the doer of all my activities, I am the proprietor, I am the enjoyer. So when this kind of mentality is there, where is the possibility of humility? So because we have this kind of mentality, this Purusha Bhava or Ishvara Bhava, Ishamani syndrome. In Bhagavatam language, it is called, it's a disease called Ishamani syndrome, considering oneself as Isha, right? Controller. So such people who have this Ishamani syndrome are given an opportunity to live in this material world and exercise their controllership, exercise their doership, exercise their enjoyership. And when they are frustrated in their attempts to enjoy or control this material nature, lord of this material nature, they become humble, then they can surrender to Krishna. Big plan, master plan behind this creation. The purpose of this creation is to make us humble. But if we voluntarily choose to become humble, Krishna's job is very easy. Let's make Krishna's job easy. Let's not trouble Krishna so much. Poor Krishna, how many people he has to make humble? He has to make every single living entity humble. Even if the living entity is an abominable species of insects or ants or even frogs, there is some ego there. Frog ego. Right? Ant ego. Ant is small, but the ego is gigantic. Right? Ego is like an elephant. Elephant ego, tiger ego. Every single living being, whether in human species or non-human species, has an ego, which is totally contradicting Vaishnava humility. Haridas Thakur, when he was about to die, he was very, very sick. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went and asked Haridas Thakur, what's the matter? Why do you look so weak? Then Haridas Thakur said, my dear Lord, my body is perfectly alright, but my mind is not alright. What happened? I am unable to chant my 192 rounds. 192, not 4, not 2. Right? So 192, I am unable to chant 192 rounds. Mahaprabhu said, you are so old now, you can reduce the number of rounds. You will be ecstatic. If somebody comes and says a new standard is 8 rounds per day, oh wow, the new initiation was updated figure, only 8. You will be ecstatic, right? So he asked him to chant minimum 8 rounds. But Haridas Thakur said, I am unable to chant 192 rounds and Mahaprabhu said, you can reduce the number of rounds. Mahaprabhu said to Namacharya, he says, no, I cannot reduce my rounds. But anyways, my dear Lord, you are about to wind up your manifest Leela in this world. I don't want to be alive witnessing that Leela. Kindly allow me to leave this world before you leave this world. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, if you are not there, who will give me association? How can I survive in my bhakti? Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, he means it. You know what Haridas Thakur said? My dear Lord, don't keep me in illusion. Why are you keeping me in illusion? If an insignificant insect dies, what difference does it make to this universe? I am more insignificant than that insect. If I die, how can it affect your devotional service? My only desire is, I want to keep your lotus feet on my heart. And I look at your lotus face with my eyes and say, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, and depart from this world. Mahaprabhu said Tathasti, and he fulfilled the desire. Haridas Thakur, being the Namacharya, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended on this planet to establish the Yuga Dharma of Harinam Sankirtan. Chanting the holy names of Krishna is the Yuga Dharma of this world, of this Yuga. And Mahaprabhu made Haridas Thakur Namacharya, and Namacharya Haridas Thakur is considering himself more insignificant than an insect. saying that my departure from this world makes no difference to this world, to this universe. I'm insignificant. But people who are in their old age, when they're about to die, they think, if I die, what will happen to my children? What will happen to my wife? What will happen to my husband? What will happen to my relatives? What will happen to my company? What will happen to the organization? Who are we to make any difference in anyone's life? And whatever difference we are making, positive difference we are making in others' lives, is only because of the empowerment given by Krishna. How can we take any credit for it? If a crow takes some plumes of peacock and tucks in its tail and says, I'm looking so beautiful. It's just making a fun of itself. Right? We are like that. As Arjuna says, Tadvai dhanushtai shavaha saraso saratho hayaste soham rathi nrupatayo yata anapanti sarvam kshanena tadabhuda sadishariktam bhasmam bhutam pohakara dhamiko pavushya. He says very clearly that whatever powers I had to fight in this Kurukshetra battle and defeat so many prominent warriors of this Kurukshetra battle, all those powers are coming to me from Krishna. And after Krishna left this material world, all my powers have become so useless and so I have become totally powerless. I am the same Arjuna. I have the same Gandhiva bow. I have the same chariot. I have the same astras, arrows. I have the same horses. But I don't have the same power to even defeat even some insignificant cowherds also. The same warrior has defeated big celebrated warriors of the time, but he could not even defeat some cowherds after Krishna's departure. All my powers have become like oblations in ashes. All my powers have become so insignificant that they are like money created by the magic wand of a magician. They are like seeds sown in barren field, which will not produce any fruit or plant. So Arjuna felt completely depleted of all his powers. All the powers are dependent on Krishna. If Arjuna's power is dependent on Krishna, what about our power? Whatever power we have. We may be great leaders or singers or speakers or deity worshippers or managers. All the power is given by Krishna. Whatever credit we have is that we chose to utilize that power given by Krishna in his service. That's our credit. Somehow we have some desire or some inclination to utilize what Krishna has given us in Krishna's service, offering Ganges water back to Ganga. That's the only credit we have. Nothing else. Our powers are not ours. They are meant for Krishna. But most conditioned souls in this material world utilize the powers or talents or skills or resources or money or manpower that Krishna has given to them to serve their own selfish purposes, to enjoy sense gratification, selfish purposes. But somehow, by the grace of Guru, Krishna and Acharyas and sadhus around us, we develop some desire to utilize what we have in Krishna's seva. That's the only credit we have. Nothing else. We have no other credit. And for that desire, you know what? How Krishna will reciprocate? He will give us love of God. He will give us Krishna Prema. He is giving us powers. He is giving us talents and money and manpower and resources and so many skills, so many things He has given us. Hands and legs and eyes, nose, etc. Everything He has given us. Right? And we utilized whatever we have given, whatever we have been given, we are utilizing some of it, little bit of it to Krishna, for Krishna's service. Most of the times, our resources and talents we are using for ourselves, for our personal maintenance, right? Little bit we allocate for Krishna. Krishna becomes so grateful for it. He gives love of God. He gives Krishna Prema for it. Who is more humble here? Krishna is not saying, I have given him. Sometimes when we preach to somebody, I have given him Kanti Mala. He doesn't understand. I have recommended him for initiation. I taught him Bhagavad-gītā. I am his Bhakti Shastri teacher. In ABCD also, I taught him Bhagavad-gītā. There's so much of ego. There's so much of sense of accomplishment or achievement just because we inspired a couple of people to chant Hare Krishna. Mantra did we create? We have invested the potential in the mantra. Krishna has invested. Krishna has given that power into his holy names, and we have been given that powerful holy name. We are informing this to others. How can I take credit for it? The power of mantra is not ours. Mantra itself is powerful. So humility is required in every walk of life. Otherwise, we cannot survive in spiritual life. We cannot progress in spiritual life. Our advancement and our satisfaction and our progress in spiritual life is completely dependent on how humble we are. How much we realize we are insignificant. One more thing, I was saying something back. A part of humility, a facet of humility is to be malleable by the Lord's will. Pandavas were so malleable by Krishna's will. If Krishna wants them to undergo Vanavas, they will undergo. You may think that Duryodhan has organized or is the cause of the Vanavas of Pandavas. You may think like that. Yeah. From one perspective, that is true. Yes, it is because of Duryodhan Pandavas had to go to the forest. But ultimately speaking, Pandavas, what is their perspective? They have accepted it as Krishna's will. Why would Krishna desire any difficulties for the Pandavas like this? Exile for the Pandavas? Is it Krishna's desire really to have Pandavas lose their Indraprastha kingdom, operate Indraprastha kingdom, and then walk on the in the streets or forests? In one sense, yes. Because that exile period is very important for us to understand so many lessons. It's just a small phase in Pandava's life. They lived for several years, maybe a century or so, or more than that. At least Krishna's age is 125. Arjuna is similar in age. Arjuna is also 125 years. And Bhima may be a little elder. Nakula Sadhu may be a little older. At least more than a century they lived. And only 13 years they were in the forest. 12 years in the forest, 1 year in Ajnatas. But that little duration, which is hardly some 8-9% of their life, has given us so many lessons. And the foremost of all the lessons is how a devotee does not lose faith in Krishna despite experiencing hundreds and thousands of troubles in personal life. Generally, when some calamity happens, some unexpected event happens in our lives, we lose faith in Krishna. But your devotees don't lose faith in Krishna. To announce that faithful attitude of a devotee, Krishna has to arrange this Vanavas in their lives. And that all the calamities that these devotees underwent brought out their humility, and out of humility they are showing their gratitude to Krishna. Kunti Mata says, Vishan Mahatmeha Purushada Darshanat Asat Sabhaya Vanavasa Kutsrataha Mridhe Neta Maharathastrato Draunyastratastyasma Hare Bhirakshita. If Krishna has not given them difficulties, we will not be hearing Krishna, Kunti Mata's prayer now. Right? So difficulties will make us humble. And the difficulty should make us grateful also. Because during the difficulty, Krishna gives us the physical and mental and inner strength to tolerate the difficulties, and we are grateful to Krishna for equipping us with that difficulty, with the tolerance during the difficulty. And Krishna is announcing through us to the whole world how my devotee is very faithful to me. He doesn't lose faith in me. He doesn't lose hope in me. He accepts even misery as my mercy. And it's a great preaching. Krishna is preaching to the Pandavas. And of course, Krishna is also filtering unqualified people from the path of bhakti. That people see Pandavas underwent so many difficulties and they are devotees of Krishna. I think I should not worship Krishna. I become like Pandavas. Whoever thinks like that will be filtered out. And Krishna says, I don't want this Hare. Let them brought in this particular existence for whatever time they are. So Krishna is also doing a filtering program. He is doing preaching also. He is glorifying the faithful attitude of Pandavas He's announcing how faithful a devotee is even during calamities. At the same time, Krishna is also trying to filter unqualified. We don't know Hare. Right? So, humility is to align with the will of the Lord. Sarathya parishada sevana sakhyatautya Virasanānugamanastavana pranaman Snigdheshu pandushu jagat pranatim cha Vishnu Bhaktim karoti nrupatischaranaya vindye. Sarathya, Krishna played the role of a Sarathi. Parishada, he is receiving Agar Puja. Sevana Sakhyatautya, he is acting like a messenger. Now you see, if Pandavas have not gone to Vanavas, would there be a situation where Krishna had to become their messenger and take their message to Duryodhana on their behalf? There would not be such a situation. There is no need for such a situation to arise, isn't it? So, when Krishna orchestrated this Vanavas for the Pandavas, this great difficulty for the Pandavas, later Krishna rendered menial service to them by acting as their messenger, by acting as their driver of Arjuna, to demonstrate to all of us that Krishna loves his devotees. Krishna can do any kind of menial services to his devotees. And Kunti Mata says, Krishna, we are very, very grateful to you for arranging all those calamities. Vipataha santutaha shashvat tatra tatra jagat guru bhavatava darshanam yasyada punar bhavadarshanam. Let there be more and more calamities. Let my son Bhima be poisoned once again. Let our house be set on fire once again. Let my daughter-in-law be insulted once again. Not that she's actually loving all these calamities, literally. But that calamity was giving an opportunity to Mother Kunti to see Krishna. And they're very grateful for it. They're so humble. They're not demanding, what mistake did we do? Whenever some calamity happens in somebody's life, I have not harmed even one ant also. Why is Krishna doing this to me? That's a general question, typical question, common dialogue in many, many cases. Of course, we empathize with their problems, we sympathize with their conditions. At the same time, we should also desire and help them equip themselves with the necessary maturity to see misery as mercy of Krishna. And that's what Bhagavatam is repeatedly teaching us. And only when there is humility, we can do that. Humility is the source of this realization. Only humble devotees can see misery as mercy of Krishna. Otherwise, they demand, they expect Krishna to act the way they want Krishna to act. They expect Krishna to orchestrate certain situations in their lives. Why should Krishna be obliged? But humble devotees accept the life the way it comes. And of course, they try their best to avoid calamity, but despite all their human abilities, human attempts, still some calamity comes. They will accept it. That is humility. Humility is to accept the will of the Lord. Another facet of humility is, even if you are so talented, you are asked to keep quiet. Will you be keeping quiet? For example, during the Samudra Manthan Leela, the Devatas and the demons tried to lift the Mandara mountain, and somehow they could not lift. Their limbs were broken, they fell down. Some of them completely lost their consciousness and lost their lives also. The Lord Vishnu came on the back of Garuda, lifted Mandara mountain. It's like Krishna lifted Govardhan mountain, Vishnu lifted Mandara mountain, kept it on the back of Garuda, and he brought this mountain to the shore of Milk Ocean, and Lord Vishnu said, out, we can't stay here. Garuda, your job is to do door delivery or ocean delivery, beach delivery of this Mandara mountain. You can't see Samudra Manthan. For the first time in the entire universal time, universal history, the Devatas and demons are doing a collaborative effort of churning the Milk Ocean. And here is Garuda deprived of that opportunity to see that, to witness that. Okay. Why? Because it is going to come. Is there any protest on the part of Garuda? He humbly said, my dear Lord, whatever service you want to do, I will do. Sometimes we feel very disheartened and sidelined and left out and broken-hearted when we are not involved in something that we wish to be involved. We think that it is my right to be informed about this. But then we are neglected. Of course, there is nothing wrong in wanting to be informed, but we need to introspect. Is the desire to know that coming from my deep service attitude or my ego or identities, material identities? We need to question ourselves. And if it is coming from the depths of our material identifications, then it's very unhealthy. But if you want to serve, you would like to be informed so that you can contribute to that service, you don't miss the opportunity to serve, that's a different thing. That's wonderful. But sometimes there's an ego. Also, how can they do this without informing me? There's an identification towards one's power and position and experience or talents and skills and whatever influence. They didn't acknowledge my greatness. Like, there is one personality in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam who violated all these core principles that Mahaprabhu is teaching. Daksha. So Daksha entered the sacrificial arena and he was not at all humble, seeing Lord Shiva. Right? There is no humility, and when Shiva did not get it, there is no tolerance. And he is expecting respect from Shiva, and he is not respecting Shiva. He is not respecting anybody. All the palace residents, the residents of the sacrificial assembly, they were requesting him, please stay back, you are the prominent Prajapati, your presence is required for the sacrifice. He is so egoistic, he said, I will not stay. Right? He is not at all respecting the entire assembly. He was even criticizing Brahma. This Brahma has instructed me to give my doe-eyed daughter to this monkey-eyed rascal Shiva. Otherwise I would not have married. I would not have got my daughter married to this Shiva. He was so arrogant, so self-centered, so critical of his father also. So, when we are very self-centric and very egoistic, then we don't respect others and we expect respect for ourselves. And we cannot, there's no possibility of chanting the redemption of Krishna. Hanumanji is such a powerful warrior. In Ramayana he did so much seva. But in Mahabharata what seva was given to him? He was told, just sit on the flag of Arjuna, keep blessing him. And whenever Bhima rose, you join him and start. That's what he said. And Hanuman said, okay, this is my service, okay, we do this. Sometimes our service, we know we do big services, but sometimes the service that we get is to sit in a corner and then play karta. Or even not even that also. We should be willing to do that. If it is big or small, if that is what Vaishnavas have given us, if that is the position that Krishna has given us, we should be willing to accept that. We should be happy for it. So, these are some principles of humility that are repeatedly being taught in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam and to the examples of so many exalted devotees. And by the way, one caution note at the end. Humility and tolerance does not mean we allow ourselves to get exploited by others unnecessarily. We should fight for what is right. Krishna taught Arjuna, tolerate.